So in this class we will learn about addition and subtraction of vectors, addition and of vectors, and we will also learn about parallelogram law. Law of vector addition. Okay. So let us first understand about addition of vectors. What is addition of two vectors? Now first let us look at addition of scalars. How do scalars add? Suppose if I have a number, say 21, this is a scalar, and I have another number, say 19. Now how do I add the two? I simply say 21 plus 19, and that gives me the sum of the two, right? What is the sum of the two? So this is 20 plus 21, 19 plus 21 will give me 40. You can also see that if I change the order, suppose I write 19 first and 21 later, then it will not change the answer. Answer remains the same. This is this property in which I can interchange the operands, means the numbers around the sign plus, is called commutative property. What do we call it? Commutative property. Okay, so this is addition of scalars. How do we add vectors now? So if you look at the vectors, we represent vectors by arrows. Suppose if I have two vectors, one vector is vector A, okay, other vector is vector B. Now how do I add these two vectors? So to add the two vectors, the rule is simple. First is drag the first vector, but then I'll need to tell you what is the first vector and what is second vector. So suppose I want to do A plus B. I want to find out what will be A plus B. So I need to drag A to a suitable position. Okay. How do I drag A? How do I move A from here? So we call it translate a vector. Translation of a vector. What is translation of a vector? You move a vector without changing its direction. Without changing its direction or magnitude. Important word here is without. You don't have to change its direction. So let us try to understand. Let us move A now. Can I move A? I think there is a choice here. So I can select this and I can drag it to some position. Okay. Then second point is point, this is first point. Second point is you put this is the first vector. When you write a plus b, I will call vector a as first vector. Okay. Then you put vector b, tail of vector b on the head of vector A. You have to translate B in such a way that the tail of vector B comes at the head of vector A. How do we do that? So I translate it. How can I translate? I select and then I drag it and I put it here. Okay. So what is the resultant vector? The resultant vector is, what is the sum vector? So sum vector is from tail of A to head of B. Tail of A to head of B means I take the tail, I use a different color now. Let me use a green color. So देखो, we will start a vector from the tail of A, and where do we end? Head of B. This becomes the sum vector. We will call this vector as A plus B. A plus B. You understand this? We call this vector as A plus B. Now this is on iPad, so I can drag. But what will happen if you can't drag? Obviously on paper you can't drag. How do we do it on paper? Very simple. You draw a vector which has the same magnitude and same direction of A. So let us say you draw a vector which has the same magnitude and same direction as vector A. Okay. Then you draw this another vector B which has same magnitude and same direction as vector B. Okay. So what will be your A plus B vector then? From the tail of A to the head of B. तुम बीच बीच में बोल सकते हो, कोई इशू नहीं. So I can draw a vector from here to here, and this is going to be my vector A plus vector B. So just that you can redraw, showing just that A direction, A का डायरेक्शन वही होना चाहिए, A का मैग्नीट्यूड भी वही होना चाहिए, B का डायरेक्शन वही होना चाहिए, B का मैग्नीट्यूड भी वही होना चाहिए. As long as that is maintained, it is A plus B. You understand? Now we will look into how do we get B plus A. Can you tell me? How do we get B plus A? बोलो. जब बोलो मुझे डालना होगा तो मैं उतना क्रॉप कर दूंगा. B प्लस ए कैसे करोगे? तो यहाँ पे रूल्स क्या देखा तुमने? ट्रांसलेट अ वेक्टर, पहले ट्रांसलेट फर्स्ट वेक्टर को आप ट्रांसलेट करोगे, एंड देन bring the second vector का tail on the top of the head of the vector A. Correct? So now if you have to do B plus A, what is your first vector? First vector कौन सा है तुम्हारा अभी? Your first vector is B now, and second vector is now A. So how do we do now? How do we do B plus A? You first translate the vector B. So you can translate the vector B. How do we translate? As I said, you can draw a vector in the same direction with the same magnitude. Okay? So this is my vector B. Correct? Then you can draw second vector. Second vector, how do we have to translate? Look at the rule. Tail of the second vector on the head of the first vector. Where is the tail of the second vector? Tail of the second vector is this. ये कहाँ जाएगा? This is the tail of the second vector now. This will go here. Okay? At the A. So how do we do this? You translate A from here. Okay? This is your vector A now. You understood? No? Where is the doubt? When you add a vector, let us look at the rules once again. Translate the first vector. When I write here vector A, what I mean is the first vector. Translate the first vector, that is move without changing its direction or magnitude to wherever you want to. Then tail of the second vector on the head of the first vector. तो यहाँ पे second A, when you write A plus B, your second vector was B. Your first vector is A. You understood? So you wrote the first vector here and you brought the second vector on it. Correct? So your A plus B is here. Now you want B plus A. So when you do B plus A, what is your first vector? Your first vector is B. So B is to be drawn first. Then on the head of B, you bring the second vector. Tail of the second vector. That comes here. Okay? Then the resultant will be from tail of the first to the head of the second. So tail of the first to the head of the second. This is your resultant. This is B plus A. Okay? Now you can see that this vector and this vector, they are same. They are equal in their length, and this vector and this vector, they are both green ones, they are same, equal in length, and they are pointing in the same direction. Therefore we can safely say that A plus B is equal to B plus A. That means vector addition is also commutative. What do we call it? Commutative. Commutative क्या था? देखो इधर. If you change the order, answer does not change. So that is what it means, commutative. Do we take one more example? Example 2. What is example 2? Let us take two vectors. One vector is, let me take a vector P. This is vector P. Okay? I'll take another vector I will take another vector which is vector q. Now I want to find out what is p plus q. How do I do? The rule says first move the, now which is the first vector, which is second vector? P is the first, q is the second. So what do? You first move the p vector. So p vector ko I can redraw such that its length is same and its direction is same. So this becomes the p vector. Okay. Now what happens to the q? How do I translate q? See, the word used is translation. Translation का मतलब होता है वेक्टर को मूव करना but without changing its direction, without changing its magnitude. So now I will translate q. Sorry. How do I translate q? Tail of the second vector on the head of tail of the second vector on the head of the first vector. So second vector is what here? Q. So how do I move? This is the tail. Where will it go? It will go at the head point of the P without changing its magnitude, without changing its direction. So I'll draw it like this. Do you see this? This is vector Q. Correct? So how do I get vector R resultant? Sum vector. Sum vector is from tail of A to head of B. Tail of the first to the head of the second. What was first here in this case? No. So what is the sum vector? Sum vector is drawn from the tail of the first vector to the head of the second vector. What is the tail of the first vector? What is the first vector here? In this example, P. And what is the tail point? Tail point is here. Correct? Where is the second vector here? Q. Where is the head point of the Q? Is here. Okay? So what is the sum vector? Sum vector, go back and check. It is from the tail of first to the head of the second. So tail of first is this point. Head of the second is this point. So you have to draw a vector from tail of the first to the head of the second. So if you draw a vector from here to here, then this is going to be the sum vector. Okay? How do we call it? We will call it P plus Q. Okay? If you want, you can give it some other name also. No, there is no binding. You always call P plus Q. You can call it R vector, let us say. So this can become R vector. So R is, we will say R is sum of P and Q. Correct? How do I get Q plus P? So now you have changed the orders. What was first vector in previous case has become now the second vector. And what was the second vector in previous case has now becomes the first vector. You understand? So now which vector to draw first? Q. So you draw Q in a way. First vector to be drawn is not this way. iPad has its own intricacies. You draw the first vector Q. Okay? Such that you don't change the length, you don't change the direction. Be as much accurate as possible. Okay, so that you have drawn Q. Now on the head of Q you will get the tail of P. तो P इधर है, P को ऐसे ट्रांसलेट करो कि P का जो टेल है इट शुड कम ऑन द हेड ऑफ Q. तो हाँ, so you draw the P vector like this, same length and same magnitude. So this becomes the same direction. This becomes the pure P. Therefore, what is your sum vector? Sum vector will come from where?
Q plus P.
No. From where to where it will be drawn? From the tail of Q to the head of P. The sum vector will be drawn from here to here. This is going to be P plus, sorry, ulta, Q plus P. Okay. Now you can again see that this vector is same as this vector. This is also equal to R. So you can once more established that now two vectors, if they are in the same line, what will be the resultant? That is interesting. Example 3. If two vectors are on the same line, suppose I have vector A here and I have vector, they are same directional. They are typically called as parallel vectors. What do we call it? Parallel vectors. See, they are pointing in the same direction, so they are called parallel vectors. What is the angle between them? Theta. Angle between them, theta, is 0 because they are pointing in the same direction. These are parallel vectors. They are not equal vectors. Equal vectors होने के लिए एक और condition जरूरी होती है. They should be equal in length also. But these are not equal in length. These are same in direction. So how do we now add them? I want to write, let us say first A plus B. So how do we do that? So it's very straightforward. First, what do we draw? First we draw vector A. Am I right? Correct? Then what do we do? On the, बोलो, वेक्टर बी को कहाँ ले जाएंगे? नहीं, वेक्टर बी का टेल वेक्टर ए के हेड पे जाएगा. So ऐसे. Do you see this? This will be vector B. So where will the now resultant vector? Sum vector. How do we draw the sum vector now? नहीं, say it loudly and say it clearly. नहीं, फर्स्ट वेक्टर के टेल से सेकंड वेक्टर के हेड तक. So in this case, how will you say? In this case, how will you say from which point to which point? A के टेल से B के हेड पर. So you will draw a line on this only. Correct? If you draw a line from this point to this point, you will draw on the same line. Correct? So it is not visible then. तब वो दिखाई नहीं देती है. So we generally draw it slightly shifted in such cases. So we can draw, because vector can always be translated. तुम वेक्टर को मूव कर सकते हो, उसकी मीनिंग नहीं चेंज होती, तो तुम थोड़ा ऊपर बना सकते हो. So from the tail of A to the head of B, this is becomes my A plus B vector. You understand that? Okay, so this is all about what will happen. Very interesting case. Example 3. What will happen if they are parallel but in opposite direction? This is parallel, same direction. The parallel but opposite direction. They are called anti-parallel. What do we call them? Anti. Anti means ulta. Anti-parallel. That means my vector A is this way, जैसा पहले था, but my vector B is this way. So now they are pointing in opposite directions. They are still parallel. If you extend this line, if you extend this line, the two lines will never intersect. What is the angle between the two vectors if they are anti-parallel? No. 90 is this way. Parallel is this way. 180. So theta here is how much? 180. How do I add the two? Rules remains the same. Tell me again now. First, what do we do?
A का tail and B का
First translate the first vector. I want A plus B. So A plus B में first vector कौन सा होगा? A. So what do I do? First translate A. So you say translate A first. So I have translated vector A here. Understood? Now what do I do?
A के head से B का tail.
A के head से B का tail. Now I need, if I do that, I'll have to draw on the same line, and that will make it little clumsy. So normally we draw it slightly shifted. How do we draw? A के head से B का tail आएगा, and then wherever B goes. Okay, so this is my vector B. So what is A plus B?
A plus B is B के head से एक
No. From the tail of A,
to B.
tail of the first vector to the head of the second vector. Tail of the first vector is here. Head of the second vector is here. So you draw vector from here to here. Correct? This becomes,
पर इसका tail तो उधर है तो ऐसे बनेगा.
no, I have shifted. Ideally all this entire diagram is on the same line. Look at it. This entire diagram, this is A. Ideally A is drawn this way, then B is drawn this way, and then A plus B is drawn here. Everything on the same line. But this, nothing is clear here. Everything looks messy. Football wala messy नहीं है, messy, गंदा. So what do? We show it slightly shifted. We show A here, we show B here, we show A plus B here. You can see that A plus B is smaller than actual lengths of addition. Can you see? Actual length बड़ी है, A plus B छोटा है. Okay? So One more example. We have seen parallel vectors, we have seen anti-parallel vector. We will see perpendicular vectors. Perpendicular vectors कैसे होंगे? I have my vector A here and I have my vector B here. Now I want to find out what is A plus B, and then I will try to find out what is B plus A. Let me see if you can do it quickly. How do we say A plus B? कैसे करेंगे? First translate vector A. Okay. Then what do you do?
A के हेड से B का टेल.
A के हेड पे B का टेल आएगा. Correct? So this is vector B. Then what do you get?
A के टेल से B का हेड.
हाँ, A के टेल से B के हेड पे जो बनाओगे that is called your A plus B, which can be called C. So vector C is sum of A plus B. Now how do I get B plus A?
पहले B ट्रांसलेट करें.
पहले
B ट्रांसलेट करें.
B ट्रांसलेट करेंगे. पहले हम B ट्रांसलेट करेंगे. So पहले हम B को ट्रांसलेट कर लिए. रुको. पहले हम B को ट्रांसलेट कर लिए. अब हम उसके हेड पे क्या रखेंगे? वी विल कीप A. तो हमने उसके हेड पे A रख लिया. तो अब हमारा सम कैसे होगा?
B के टेल से A का हेड.
हाँ, तो यहाँ से यहाँ बनेगा. दिस विल बी माई B plus A. You understood this? You can now see that here Pythagoras theorem can follow, and you can also see that this and this are equal. Okay, so in the next class we will learn subtraction of two vectors. Okay.